Before Eleven and Katniss were a thing, there was Ellen freaking Ripley. Long before complex, layered sci-fi heroines were the norm, Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, instantly became the ultimate teenage crush for some, while an icon for others. Ripley, a total badass, smart, tough, and never the damsel waiting to be rescued, completely redefined the sci-fi genre and gave us one of the most iconic characters ever. Today, we'll be diving helmet first into 25 insane facts about Ellen Ripley that even die-hard Alien fans might not know. So if you think you know her, wait till you hear about number 24. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Ripley was supposed to be a man? Believe it or not, the iconic female lead of Alien from 1979, who is highly appreciated for her role as the flamethrower-wielding queen of sci-fi, was originally written with a male lead in mind. In the early drafts of the movie, almost all the characters had a gender-neutral name, with the studio obviously assuming a male actor would play the role. Enter Ridley Scott, the film director who, during casting, decided to flip the gender. This bold move on his part was done with a vision to subvert the expectations of the role and shake up a genre that had become quite male-dominated. And hey, it worked. Casting Sigourney Weaver didn't just break the mold, it redefined it. The brilliant performance by Weaver and Ridley's breakthrough movie gave us a female lead who was logical, complex, brave, and didn't fit the general stereotype of having a man rescue her. Basically, the polar opposite of every damsel in distress that sci-fi had served up till then. Another thing which made her character even more epic is that Ripley wasn't sexualized, romanticized, or confined to a subplot. She carried the entire story. So yeah, Ripley wasn't born the ultimate sci-fi icon, she was rewritten into one. The height of casting genius. Standing just shy of 5'11", Sigourney Weaver's height wasn't just a physical trait, it ended up becoming one of the reasons she was considered for the role. When Ridley Scott was looking for someone to embody Lieutenant Ellen Ripley's quiet authority and commanding presence, Weaver stood tall against the rest of the competition. Considering hers was the lead role, she stood tall against the rest of her co-stars and commanded a natural dominance without being overtly authoritative or over the top. Ironically, the height that came to her advantage later on in her life and proved to be the breakthrough role just at the start of her career was something of a sore spot for Weaver growing up. Joking, she compared herself to a big spider that knocked into everything. Her once insecurity later became her superpower with other directors, like even Al Pacino being intimidated by her height and sitting down in her presence so as not to appear short. Safe to say, her height gave the role of Ripley the gravitas and structure that it needed. Casting chaos, from Meryl Streep to Veronica Cartwright. Before Weaver weaved her way into the hearts of the audiences and casting directors, another Hollywood heavyweight was being considered to play the role of Ellen Ripley, and that is none other than Meryl Streep. Mamma mia! Coming hot off her performance in The Deer Hunter, Meryl had become a big name in the industry. The final choice reportedly came down to her and Weaver. No offense to Streep, but it's wild to imagine Streep shouting, "Get away from her, you bitch." Another oops moment happened when Veronica Cartwright arrived on set thinking she'd landed the lead role of Ripley, only to find out she had been cast to play the role of Navigator Lambert during her costume fitting. She reportedly burst into tears upon hearing the news. Weaver was comparatively not such a big name at the time, having only made one previous appearance on screen, which lasted 6 seconds in Annie Hall. However, that worked to her advantage because Ridley Scott wanted someone who would bring a fresh energy to the screen, and boy did he get it right. Strange to think how the movie would have turned out had the casting been done differently. She hates guns, but saved the world with one. Despite going on to become one of the most iconic heroines in the genre, Sigourney Weaver is quite candidly uneasy around guns and violence of any kind. When James Cameron handed her the script, she admits she glossed over all the stage directions involving firearms. So when she showed up to set and saw a stockpile of weapons, her reaction was, "What are those for?" To get her to overcome her fear and stance against guns, Cameron had her fire hundreds of rounds from a machine gun, which she found strangely addictive. Though it wasn't her personal preference, Weaver eventually understood Cameron's vision. The guns added the grit and edge to Ripley's character, which was a testament to her journey in the movie of survival and her growth as a character. Strange and almost ironic how the woman who became an action icon was never a fan of guns. How Ripley made the Academy take sci-fi seriously. Back in 1986, Hollywood didn't take the genre of sci-fi horror very seriously, but thanks to Weaver's stellar performance as a newcomer in the genre, she scored a Best Actress nomination at the Academy Awards, making her the third actor in history to be nominated for a sci-fi horror role in that category since Sissy Spacek in Carrie and Ellen Burstyn in The Exorcist. And unlike her predecessors, Weaver, a newcomer, wasn't just a scream queen, she was the literal commanding force of the film, and the Academy did notice it. This nod not only validated Alien's status from a blockbuster to bona fide cinema, but also opened the gates to other future genre performers. She was also nominated for a BAFTA award, followed by a Saturn and a Golden Globe award. It sure was a pleasant yet seismic shift from a genre mostly dominated by men starring in the same old tropes. Now an actress emerged who demanded to be taken seriously. Typical Ripley. She sure made sure they knew her name in every award room. Ripley's origins aren't what you think. Ellen Ripley's birthplace has been a point of confusion for decades. While many believe she may be Earthborn, obviously, what with the way she fought against the acid-spitting Xenomorphs, franchise lore suggests otherwise. According to Alien canon, Ripley was born on Olympia, a colony of Luna, which is Earth's moon. Adding to this, her statement in Alien Resurrection, "I'm a stranger here myself," further adds fuel to the fire behind this theory. In fact, not just her birthplace, but also her birth date is a topic of hot discussion, with some sources pinning it as January 7th, 2092, while others list it as June 10th, 2103. That's a whole 11-year gap. Some fans argue that the conflicting birth years are tied to the existence of her many clones. Because hey, after being resurrected with alien DNA, what's a little age confusion? These timeline inconsistencies add to the shroud of mystery that surrounds Ripley. It sure is one wonder though. Was her past intentionally left vague? A narrative oversight? Or maybe yet another example of a Weyland-Yutani level cover-up? Call her Ripley. We know her as Ellen Ripley, sure, but try recalling when anyone in the original Alien trilogy has actually called out her first name Ellen. It's rare. Her first name is almost never used on screen. From crewmates to commanding officers, nearly everyone calls her simply Ripley. And while that choice was more than just that Ripley sounds cooler than Ellen, it was in fact to give the main lead the professionalism her character needed, with an aura of commanding whichever room she walked into. There's a softness to Ellen, but Ripley wasn't here to be cute or be bound by gendered expectations. She was here to survive, command, and yeah, carry an entire franchise. Interestingly, not a lot of people know, but her full name is Ellen Louise Ripley, which wasn't revealed in the theatrical cuts. The middle name was shown in the director's cut in a very blink and you'll miss it moment. Snooze Queen of the Galaxy. What was meant to be a mini siesta atop the Narcissus, Ripley never expected to receive the award for highest hypersleep ever recorded, clocking at an astonishing 57 years. That's not just oversleeping your alarm, that's waking up after 6 whole decades of cosmic jet lag. No one in the galaxy has ever hit snooze that hard and still made it back with a pulse. And get this, the super exaggerated time jump was kept very vague and open to viewer interpretation. But then came the director's cut, which gave us the gut-punching scene that shows that while Ripley is snoozing, her daughter, on the other hand, dies of old age. This heartbreaking moment makes the whole situation heavy in terms of how Ripley survives, but also outlives everyone she loved, which is a crazy thing to experience, let alone even comprehend. Ironically, the mission was only supposed to take a few months, but thanks to a busted trajectory and a lot of bad luck, Ripley accidentally managed to drift through space for over half a century, with no one else clocking this many years in hypersleep, and then she lived to tell the tale. Was Ripley a cat person? Ripley versus the alien? Expected. Floating through deep space? A bit of an exaggeration, but still believable. But Ripley going through the jaws of death just to save a ginger furball named Jonesy? Didn't see that coming. So it turns out that our no-nonsense Snooze Queen also had a soft spot for whiskers and toe beans. In the otherwise emotionally heavy and dark tone set throughout the movie, Ripley's bond with Jonesy offered a rare emotional anchor. Also, if you're one of those people who are unaffected by violence and gore when humans or even aliens are involved, but can't proceed if there's an animal involved, then this side plot would definitely steal your hearts. Despite the Xenomorph picking off her crewmates like popcorn, Ripley goes out of her way, not once, but multiple times, all to ensure Jonesy's safety. Thinking of it from a symbolic perspective, Jonesy isn't just a cat. He's a symbol of normalcy and humanity, and the sweet, nurturing side of hers that's depicted apart from her otherwise gritty, badass size is the very reason why she's different than the other sci-fi leads. On day one, Sigourney thought that she was allergic to cats, but it turned out just to be a bad reaction to glycerin. Lucky break, because the crew joked it'd be easier to recast her than find 4 identical stunt double cats for Jonesy. How Ripley cheated death twice. Believe it or not, Ripley, the iconic xenomorph smashing queen that instantly cemented a place for herself in the audience's hearts, was almost axed in Aliens. The character was supposed to meet a tragic end, with the idea of killing her off midway through the sequel being floated by director James Cameron. The studio's response? A hard, resounding no. No way were they about to torch their golden goose. In fact, Ripley wasn't supposed to survive the first film either. Ridley originally had planned a brutal ending to Ripley for the 1979 movie, where her face-off with the xenomorph would result in the creature smashing through her helmet and quite literally ripping her face off. The alien would then supposedly mimic her voice to sign off to Earth. Luckily, the beloved character of Ripley survived and then went on to become the epic action heroine she is known to be today. And obviously, the studio executives weren't going to kill off a character who had the potential to carry the entire franchise written all over her. So, to the executives who saved Ripley's character, you didn't just save her, but rather saved the whole trajectory of how the film franchise shaped up from then on. Method acting at all times. The seemingly icy cold friction between humans and xenomorphs wasn't the only one aboard the Nostromo. The in-your-face tension between Ripley and Dennis Parker, the gruff chief engineer played by Yaphet Kotto, was enough to make even the xenomorph feel the burn. Turns out, director Ridley Scott had a sneaky trick up his sleeve. He had previously asked Kotto to deliberately irritate Weaver off camera, be it through small jabs, cold shoulders, or subtle antagonism, which would create a very realistically palpable tension, further bleeding into their performances. And it worked. Kotto kept the act up between takes to the point where Weaver genuinely felt on edge around him, resulting in a very convincing hostility between the co-stars, evident for the audience to gauge through the screen. Kotto, a seasoned method actor, reportedly continued being in character even during lunch breaks, refusing to soften around Weaver. It's silly yet very efficient tricks like this that give the movie that added layer of grounded realism in contrast to the overall theme of out-of-this-world terror. Ripley's controversial undress. Among the many iconic moments of the movie, few have stirred as much drama and debate as Ripley's final confrontation. After narrowly escaping the Nostromo, Ripley begins to undress for hypersleep, only to discover that the creature is still aboard. Many felt that the scene wasn't really required and was included to cater to the male gaze, especially since she's depicted as such a strong feminist icon throughout the film. Director Ridley Scott defended the decision, claiming her shedding of the grimy clothes makes logical sense. Weaver, in fact, came to the defense of her character and took it one step further, suggesting that Ripley should have, in fact, stripped completely to reflect her raw human side in contrast to the ongoing alien menace she had endured. Scott did entertain the idea, but ultimately ended up scrapping it up in the early drafts only, and Ripley in her now famous micro knickers made cinematic history. Surprisingly, though, director James Cameron, who helmed the sequel, Aliens, notably disapproved of the scene and claimed he instead wished to craft strong female characters without resorting to such moments. Weaver, part-time actor, part-time stuntwoman. Surprisingly, unlike the norms of the time for an actress, despite having stunt doubles available on the Alien and Aliens sets, Weaver insisted on performing many of her own stunts, be it crawling through claustrophobic air ducts or climbing ladders with a flamethrower strapped to her back. Weaver made it a point to really give herself to the role of Ripley and make the character seem even more visceral by performing most of the action sequences by herself. This hands-on approach also broke away from the traditional image that was set for the female leads at the time. That being said, it obviously didn't come without its toll on her, as she reportedly suffered bruises, exhaustion, and even minor injuries along the way. Even the director and crew were left in awe at her endurance and obvious commitment to the role. No wonder Sigourney Weaver went on to receive an Oscar nomination in the category of Best Actress for the movie. Her dedication of delivering a sense of authenticity to the character definitely helped make Ripley a memorable and iconic character. Ripley's strange kinship with the Xenomorphs. By the time we reach Alien Resurrection, Ripley 8 isn't just fighting monsters, she has become one, at least partially. With her cloned DNA spliced from the Xenomorph Queen, she has acid for blood, enhanced alien-like reflexes, and an eerie psychic link to them. But just how alien is she? The film never reveals the exact split of the human versus alien ratio in her. Is it 50-50, 70-30? And though she retains human compassion and flashes of memory, fans debate whether those include memories of her daughter. But what's crazy is some fan theories suggest the seeds for this connection between Ripley and the aliens were planted way before Resurrection, somewhere in Aliens during the War of Mothers, which was fought between the Queen and Ripley, the surrogate mother of Newt. In fact, in the early drafts of Resurrection, this bond was taken to the next level. The Xenomorphs were supposedly scripted to show reverence towards Ripley, worshipping her and treating her like royalty. This was done to indicate that they were able to sense her being one of them, thereby changing the dynamic between the two from a predator and prey to more of a matriarch and worshipper tone. The Queen Within. In one of the early versions of the Alien 3 script, Ripley's final act was set to be even more intense than what made it to the screens. The original script envisioned a queen embryo violently ripping out of Ripley's chest mid-air as she plunges to her death, with Ripley supposedly trying to catch it while falling as a desperate last attempt to stop the creature from surviving her. This version emphasized how Ripley was committed to ending the Xenomorph threat, even if it meant at the cost of her own life. But unfortunately, this version did not make the cut and had to be eliminated from production, and in its place, the film showed that the embryo remains inside her until she hits the molten lead at Fury 161. Although the scene was too visceral, fans are left speculating if it would have been too much or seemingly fitting in terms of the iconic heroine wrestling the literal demon inside her till the very end. The $11 million resurrection of Ripley. After sacrificing herself in Alien 3, it seemed like the story of Ellen Ripley had reached its definitive end. But the franchise was not ready to move on, and neither were the fans, who just couldn't imagine their legendary character not appearing on the screen anymore. Sigourney Weaver initially had no plans to return for Alien Resurrection, but the studio made her an offer she couldn't refuse. They reportedly offered her $11 million, which was a lot by 90s standards, and on top of that, to be offered to the female lead was saying something. Along with the incredible offer, she was also offered creative control and the power to approve the director. Set 200 years after her death, she was brought back in Alien Resurrection via cloning. Back as a hybrid, Ripley 8 had acidic blood and alien-like agile moves. It was a bold move, but ultimately proved the fact that the entire film was indeed riding on the shoulders of the iconic heroine, who'd by now become the head, heart, and spine of the franchise. How the Alien's power loader was born from Cameron's scrap heap. Long before Ripley ever stepped into the iconic power loader in Aliens, making it just as defining to the movie as her, the power loader was already ready, except maybe a bit crude on the design. The exosuit actually traces back to Xenogenesis, a short film that Cameron made in the late 70s. It was then repurposed with a few modifications for Alien with a much more fitting aesthetic. To differentiate the vision he had during Xenogenesis Genesis from The Empire Strikes Back, which came out with these big walking machines in it, he had to pivot the design to a two-legged upright rig that we now know as the iconic power loader. And while it may just have started as a scrapped concept, it played a crucial role during Ripley's face-off against the Xenomorph Queen. The power loader now isn't just an action set prop, but rather also a feminist symbol alongside Ripley. No room for Ripley in Prometheus. The idea that Ripley would make a cameo in Prometheus, envisioned as a prequel to Alien via a hologram, was floated but was quickly scrapped out to eliminate the chance of timelines clashing. Prometheus went on to evolve its own storyline with a fresh mythology and focused very briefly on the pre-established characters. Although the holographic appearance of Ripley would have really tied the original franchise to its supposed prequel, it would have also raised more questions than answering any. For one, Prometheus is set nearly 30 years before Ripley was even born, making her appearance impossible, even if we assume it would be through a stored recording. The filmmaker instead chose to focus on the storyline of the android David, played by Michael Fassbender. Although fans missed their legendary heroine, Prometheus made sure it was known that it's not aspiring to be an Alien 2.0, but rather take a path of its own. Bringing Ripley into that narrative wouldn't only have disrupted the timeline, but also distracted attention from David's arc, who dawns on this godlike puppet master role, slowly intertwining the strings between the horrors to come. Sigourney Weaver's real mother had a cameo. One of the more emotionally heavy moments in Aliens is when Ripley wants to know what happened to her daughter Amanda. Having been in hypersleep for 57 years, Ripley missed out on watching her grow up. Carter Burke then informs her gently that during the time she was in the stasis condition, her daughter, Amanda Ripley McLaren, died 2 years before the age of 66, having led a full life. He then goes on to show Ripley a photo of Amanda as an older woman who Ripley stares at in silence as she realizes she outlived her daughter during her time in hypersleep. Now, what actually amplifies the scene, which not a lot of people know, is that the photo of the old Amanda that Ripley sees in the photograph is actually that of Sigourney Weaver's own mother, Elizabeth Inglis. Interestingly, in James Cameron's original draft of the film, Amy was meant to be alive. Ripley would have reached out to the daughter, and the daughter, bitter at being abandoned for this many years, would have refused any contact. Ellen Ripley was once a Disney animatronic. Ellen Ripley, the legendary heroine who carried the Alien franchise, also made an appearance in a Disney attraction, the Great Movie Ride at Disney's Hollywood Studios, Florida. The ride, which was installed from 1989 to 2017 and later replaced by Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, celebrated iconic cinematic moments, and one of the most surprising inclusions in it was a full Alien-themed segment. The guests needed to enter a darkened replica of the Nostromo, complete with flickering warning lights, eerie fog, and all, where an animatronic Ripley, modeled to look exactly like Sigourney Weaver, stood mid-battle against a lurking xenomorph animatronic. The ride also had eerie background sounds of Jonesy the cat meowing in the distance and the heartbeat-raising self-destruct countdown of the ship ticking away. It even had the ladder on which Ripley had used to escape, a flamethrower strapped to her back. So yeah, it's weird to think Ellen Ripley would be holding the ground at the happiest place on Earth. Ripley's resurrection look wasn't planned, but a swap. In Alien Resurrection, Ripley's sleek dark red uniform became just as iconic as the character herself, and the go-to Halloween costume for fans and cosplay enthusiasts alike. But funny thing is, the costume wasn't intended for Ripley. What changed was the moment Sigourney Weaver saw Kim Flowers' character, Hillard, on set. She knew the costume was made for her character of Ripley. Flowers was dressed in a form-fitting, sleeveless burgundy ensemble, which Weaver immediately asked to wear instead. Her request was granted, and well, it seems like it was the right thing. In fact, you can even spot Hillard wearing this exact outfit in the underwater escape scene. And although Hillard doesn't make it, Ripley dons the outfit for the remainder of the film, turning the side character's wardrobe into her now signature outfit. The overall look of the outfit works beautifully to complement and mark Ripley's character in Resurrection, which is part human and part clone. Although costume designer Bob Ringwood had to adjust the fit slightly for Weaver to distinguish Ripley's version from Hillard's, this last-minute switch really helped solidify Ripley's transformed persona. How Sigourney Weaver saved a controversial scene. In Alien Resurrection, there's a particular scene which is bizarrely unforgettable, and is built with the lines between terrifying and intimate blurring. It is the scene where Ripley comes face to face with the alien queen. The scene seems a bit unsettling, bordering on sensual energy, and oozing with unspoken power. Interestingly, the scene seemed a bit much to the studio, and they planned to cut it out. They were reportedly uncomfortable with the ambiguous, almost romantic tension between Ripley and the creature. But no way was our Ripley, aka Sigourney Weaver, having it. She argued that the moment was important for her character's arc, as it would nod to the connection with the Xenomorphs due to her hybrid DNA. She also felt this scene added the much-needed sense of vulnerability to the otherwise badass character. In fact, so firm was Weaver on her commitment to keeping the scene in the film that she told the studio she wouldn't promote the movie if they removed it. And obviously, there was no way that the studio would lose its Golden Star's support. And ultimately, the scene stayed and went on to become one of the franchise's most unforgettable moments. Isolation featuring Ripley. It took decades, but Alien Isolation finally gave fans something they'd been hoping for quite some time. And that is Ellen Ripley's return. This time in a video game. The survival horror-based game, which came out in 2014, is set 15 years after the events of Alien and follows Ripley's daughter, Amanda, as she searches for answers about her mother's disappearance. Although the game largely focused on the storyline of Amanda, it was a pleasant surprise for fans to find out that the voice of Ellen Ripley in bonus sequences titled Crew Expendable and Last Survivor seemed very familiar. It was our very own feminist icon, Sigourney Weaver, who voiced the character she once played on the screen. Along with Weaver, the game also reunited original cast members like Tom Skerritt and Veronica Cartwright to reprise their roles. These bonus sequences allowed the players to relive moments from the film, including the escape scene and Nostromo's fateful end. But it took things to another level for the fans when these bonus sequences brought together these iconic characters once again. How one line became the Alien franchise's war cry. The super legendary line, "Get away from her, you bitch," delivered by Ellen Ripley in Alien, despite rumors to the contrary, was not improvised and was very much part of the script. What gave it that unscripted feel is maybe the way Weaver's voice went squeaky on the last word. Weaver herself had doubts about the shot and wanted to redo it, but was shut down due to time constraints. Decades later, that same line was reloaded into Alien Romulus, but this time with a twist. David Johnson, who plays the role of Andy and is amid a chaotic and high-stake face-off with a xenomorph, hurls out the iconic line, but this time completely unscripted. The line, which now had become the entire franchise's war cry of sorts, was not a part of Romulus's script, but the timing, the way it made sense to the plot, and the way Johnson delivered it ultimately helped make it to the final cut. What started as a line Weaver herself second-guessed became the defining quote of the entire film. Ripley in merch mode. Ripley's pop culture status as a feminist icon didn't just stop on the silver screen. It made its way towards merch as well. NECA released an action figure of 7-inch Alien Series 4 Ellen Ripley in her Nostromo jumpsuit, which is a fan favorite, and not just for the details. It comes with a flamethrower in one hand and a mini Jonesy in his iconic cat carrier in the other. The piece is a collector's heaven for Alien enthusiasts. Although it originally launched around 2015, the figure still pops up occasionally on secondary markets because of the never-ending hype of Ellen Ripley. Apart from the merch, there are shoes. In Aliens, Ripley rocks a pair of custom Reebok high tops. Fast forward a few decades, and Reebok dropped a limited edition line called the Alien Stompers that look exactly like the kicks Ripley wore in the movie. The release sold out faster than you could even say Xenomorph. Over the years, everything from pop figures to premium collectibles and even Lego tributes have kept Ripley's badass legacy alive in pop culture. Marvelous verdict. So there you have it. 25 insane, lesser-known facts about the one and only feminist icon of Hollywood, Ellen Ripley. Not just another sci-fi heroine, but the gold standard of how to lead the entire franchise. Whether you knew them all, or just discovered something new that blew your mind, one thing's for sure: Ripley remains the benchmark for badassery in space. What was that one insane fact that made you go, what? Drop your answers in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the like button. We'll see you in the next marvelous video.